I've used a lot of meal services, but Hungry Root truly stands out because it's built around the way real families live and eat. They don't just send meal kits. They personalize your grocery cart and meal plan based on your preferences and dietary goals. All I had to do was take a short quiz, and right away, their smart cart technology started building a cart that fit how we eat. Now, each week feels easier, like someone else is doing the thinking for me. I've been focused on cleaner eating lately, and I love that Hungry Root keeps out over 200 additives, including things like high fructose corn syrup and artificial sweeteners. Their meats are hormone and antibiotic free, and the produce options include organic and non GMO picks. They also stock brands I already trust, like Oatly, Vital Farms, and Harmless Harvest. One of our favorite meals has been the teriyaki salmon with green beans, light, flavorful, and done in 12 minutes flat. Plus, I've noticed we waste less food, spend less time shopping, and even save money by skipping those impulse grocery buys. Take advantage of this exclusive offer. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Go to hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg and use code Dr. Meg. That's hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg. Code Dr. Meg to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/Dr. Meg. Code Dr. Meg.
As a pediatrician, I know how tough it can be for parents to teach their kids gratitude, especially in a world where it feels like wanting more is always encouraged. We hear our kids asking for things all the time, and it's hard to strike a balance between meeting their needs and making sure they appreciate what they have. So today, we're joined by the amazing Rachel Cruz, a financial expert, best-selling author, my friend, and host of The Rachel Cruz Show. Rachel has been a guiding voice in the world of finance, helping people tackle debt, budgeting, and achieving financial goals. Her latest book, I'm Glad for What I Have, is aimed at kids.
Those are adult things. Like, those are things that moms and dads buy. They're not for little kids. And, I'm not saying I'm going to deprive you from stuff forever and ever, amen. But just know, like, that's not a normal rhythm in our house. So, like, I love you, but we're probably not going to be getting the $50 fanny pack, right? Or like whatever it is. Like, we're not going to do that. And because I want them to experience, to your point, that joy and happiness and a full heart and a full life is not made up in stuff.
Welcome to Parenting Great Kids. Here's your host, Dr. Meg Meeker.
Welcome to the show, Rachel. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Meg. Thanks for having me. This is so fun.
It is fun. We've known each other a long time, and I've seen you develop your career as a financial expert and teaching college students and parents how to budget money. And I thought, how in the world did you pivot from doing that to addressing kids and writing a children's book?
Yeah, I started off my career almost 15 years ago talking to high schoolers and college students. And then, I was married, I started having kids, and probably about 10 years ago, I really started shifting my message to people like me. I mean, a lot of, women who are moms and they're working, and what does it look like for them to be empowered by money? What does it look like to be in control of their money and to budget and to get out of debt and invest? And when they go to the grocery store, how do they save money doing that, right? So my message really has been geared a lot to people my age. And the next, honestly for me, the next step was, oh my gosh, I've written so many books towards my age group and, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. But now being a mom with 3 little ones and really seeing the importance of what it means to raise these little humans before we launch them out into the real world. And I was like, man, I want to teach my kids the things that I'm actually even talking about with my own content with, my age people. So there's like the tactical side of money, Meg, and then there's like the heart and the emotional side of it. So I talk about contentment and comparisons a lot as well, because I think that drives so much of our purchasing and our consumerism. And so when we can have a level of contentment, I think that's key. And so understanding that gratitude and humility, like these parts of our character really do breed this level of contentment and how important it is. So I thought, gosh, there's these buckets that I think are really important for adults to learn, but I also want my kids to learn them. So contentment is one. So I wrote, my first kids book. It's like a little board book. It was called I'm Glad for What I Have. And it's all about contentment. And it's really short and it rhymes. And it's, I really geared it towards parents. And I read with my kids at night. And I know when they're really little, you don't want a really long book. So I'm like, how can I put a message that's fun and is beautiful, but gets the point across? And then I have a new one coming out in April, and that's called I'm Glad for Where I Am, and that's about gratitude. And then my hope is for a third one on generosity. So these buckets, that I think are important for adults to learn, I want my kids to learn them as well.
You're absolutely right. And one of the things I love about your books, because I've taken a sneak peek at I'm Glad for Where I Am, I've read a lot of books because people have sent them to me, a lot of children's books. And I will say 85% of them I'm not thrilled with, but yours are fabulous. And here's why. They're written in a language that young kids can understand. There aren't too many words on a page. The illustrations are great, and they do rhyme. As you were talking about a mother in a grocery store and a mother learning to budget, I'm envisioning her with two little ones in a cart, a 5-year-old going, but mom, can I have that? But mom, can I have that? But mom, can we get this cereal, which is terrible for me? And mothers need to learn to navigate that, because I think that's a stress for every single mother going to the grocery store, not just how to budget herself, but how to teach your kids. You can walk through a grocery store or a toy store or Target and not ask for everything. And I think that's a learned skill that mothers need to teach their kids. Because I know with my grandkids, that's a big frustration. I want to give them everything, but I know I can't buy everything. And so I think the idea of you teaching parents how to budget, parents how to be content with what they have, not what they want to buy next, is really going to trickle down and allow them to teach that to their kids. And that's an extremely important lesson because, as you know, we're a consumer society. And parents have a hard time saying no to things, clothes or whatever it is. But it's even harder to say no to your kids. But it's so harmful to kids to give them stuff over and over and over. So how do you teach parents to navigate instant gratification in their kids? And what are the messages that you aim at conveying so that kids don't buy into instant gratification?
Yeah, there's two things that I feel like I think about a lot. And the first one is more is caught than taught. And we've talked about this, Meg, together, but I know you talk about this so much, but there is this, and as a parent with 3 little ones, I'm saying this to myself as I'm saying it out loud. I'm like, it is so much bigger than I even realized. And over Christmas, Meg, my parents, they always give us a trip, and all the family, we go to Mexico, and it's my sister and all her kids, my brother and his kids and spouses and all of it. And so it's kind of my parents, it's our get together between Christmas and New Year's. And my kids this year, we were sitting out by the pool and the sun is setting. It's right there on the ocean, and they're playing, and there's games, and they're in and out of the pool. And it's just beautiful. And as the sun is setting, it's getting more and more beautiful. And my fear, Meg, started getting higher and higher and higher, because I had this overwhelming moment sitting there where I thought, have I screwed them up? I grew up where my parents filed bankruptcy the year I was born. We were camping out by a lake. That was our summer trip until we were probably in high school. And so I'm like, my kids don't know anything different. They're getting these experiences so early in life, and have I ruined them? And I was sitting there right next to my husband, and I said it out loud because I really did. I kind of started feeling this level of anxiety, and I was like, golly, babe, have we messed up? Should we say no to these trips in the future? I'm going to this extreme. And he said, which I so appreciated, and just for encouragement for you young parents, and he said, and Rachel, it's what you talk about all the time. More is caught than taught. And if we are parents that are grateful, if we are parents that are generous, if we're kind to people and we show them the values that are really important in life, and that's how we are living out our life, and we set a baseline for a norm, but then there's these spikes of fun, right? There's the spike of Mexico with the family. There's, you can go to Disney. There's some fun spikes within life. but our baseline is here, and they're going to assume that's what's normal. Whatever we set as normal from our heart and our gratitude to our lifestyle and, how we choose to live and how often we choose to buy things, like all of those decisions too. What is our norm? And it puts some pressure on parents, but it's good because I'm like, yes, we have to set that standard for our kids and we have to set that baseline of normalcy. And so I think about that a lot, and it's really just, it's good accountability, honestly, for me. So there's that level. And then I also, the language around it, because I think what's difficult is some people are in a position financially where they are paycheck to paycheck. And it's true that we can't afford to go and buy everything you want. We can't go because our grocery budget is $200 this trip, and those 4 cereals is going to bust it. And we can't do that. Like, we have to stay within our budget, right? So there's that element, which is really good. But then you have the things that are $5 on Amazon. And in a second, you can smooth the situation out by saying, oh, it broke, we'll just buy another one. Or, oh, you want a necklace? Yeah, I mean, there's $5 on Amazon. It'll be here in 2 days. Like, you can start to make purchasing part of the rhythm, and what your kids are seeing and what they're experiencing is the ease and the convenience of it. And that's where I have to be really careful. And I don't want to use the language, there's kind of this scarcity language of like, we can't afford it, we can't afford it, we can't afford it, But I do want them to know that money has limits, and needs versus wants are very different, and we don't need this. So what does that mean? What does that look like, right? So even our language and our conversations, when those things do come up that they want to buy, or I find myself just wanting to smooth over a situation and just order something for them to fix it, I'm like, no, we have to go back to this idea that money has limits and money has boundaries for me as an adult and also for you as a kid. And I want you to experience those with me.
Yes, I think that when it comes down to it, how much money you have really doesn't determine your gratitude or your contentment. Because I've seen some very wealthy people who have tremendous humility and love and generosity. And they don't talk a lot about money. They just, where their heart is, and what their focus is. And their focus isn't on the money and what they have. Their focus is on relationships and people and meeting other people's needs. And so I think you're absolutely right. I think if you get your priorities right in your heart, which is my job is to love other people and to serve other people and to serve and love God. And money is all a part of that. It just becomes a tool. It doesn't become something that overloads you. I'll remember your dad saying one time to me years ago, one of the best things about having money is the ability to give more away. And I thought, what a wonderful attitude. Money is a tool to be used to help other people and to bless them. Money isn't a tool to get yourself more stuff. And so I think that's a wonderful principle. That really hit me. And I mean, I'm an adult and I've budgeted and, all my life. But I thought, wow, what a great idea. That really sheds a different light on income and what we make. And so, our job isn't just to make more money so we can get a bigger house and buy our kids more stuff, but it really is to teach our kids generosity and then also gratitude. It's hard teaching kids contentment also when they're surrounded by a peer group of kids whose parents may focus on, well, I want to get my kid the nice shoes that your kid has, or I want my kid to have something a little nicer than your kids. So how do parents deal with the competitive spirit that other parents may have with their kids to sort of outshine your kids just a little bit? Have you seen that with your kids?
I'm starting to a little bit. There's just some things that, people with my third grader, things that they have, and we've talked about it. And, she'll make comments about a brand, Lululemon, or like she'll throw out a brand that, and it's not that those things are wrong or bad, but it's to your point, Meg. I'm like, and I told her, I was like, Emily, those are adult things. Like those are things that moms and dads buy. They're not for little kids. And, I'm not saying I'm going to deprive you from stuff forever and ever. Amen. But just know, like, that's not a normal rhythm in our house. So, like, I love you, but we're probably not going to be getting the $50 fanny pack, right? Or like whatever it is. Like, we're not going to do that. And because I want them to experience, to your point, that joy and happiness and a full heart and a full life is not made up in stuff. And that is what we're told. And that's what marketing tells us deep down. And that's what we see everywhere. If I could just have this or just have that, I'll be okay. And it's a lie, because we end up being a rat in a wheel, and we run and spend and look for the thing that's going to actually fulfill us. And it's not our stuff. It's not. And the scary part is, so often we can put our identity in things that can be taken away. And there's that shallow crest of life that if your identity is in the car you drive, if it's in the school you go to, if it's in the clothes you wear, that stuff can be taken away. And that your identity and your happiness and joy is on a very shaky foundation. And I want to get to that core part of, and that's why I wrote that second book, I'm Glad for Where I Am, because it's all about family and your home, not the brick and mortar home, but the home environment that's created with your family. Like, that is a place of safety, and that is a place to draw really, I mean, honestly, this gratitude and this heart of joy, and God's love ultimately is like the deepest root of that, right? And then from there, we can expand out, because stuff is not bad. Money, like to your point, it's not wrong, but when it's in the wrong place of priority and what we think it's going to do for us, it's really dangerous. And to your point, Meg, I see 6-year-olds who are running around in circles still trying to get this, itch scratched that way. And I'm like, man, it's an exhausting life. And so when you can settle in and, like, to your point, have your priorities and your values of loving people and serving people, and that's where joy is.
That's where it really is. And I think that a lot of adults struggle with that. And I think that there's a beautiful...
And I struggle with that, right?
With it.
I'm like,
I'll tell you,
it's so hard.
Jewelry's my thing. And if I'm having a down day, I am on Amazon looking for the latest Kate Spade studs as cheap as I can get them. So I struggle with that too. But there's a beautiful part in your book. And I think that, honestly, children's books speak as much to parents as they do to the kids. This book spoke to me, and I'm reading it to my grandkids. This is I'm glad for what I have. God made the earth and the sea and the sky, and his love is a gift that you don't need to buy. You'll find something good happens inside you when you realize you don't need to buy something new. And I think there's an intrigue, and there's almost, I don't want to use the word addiction, but the sense that if I can get something brand new, something will change in my life. I see this in little kids. They can have 10 toys, and they come and run to you with the 11th toy. So excited, so excited. Look at this, look at this. And then the excitement goes away after a day or two, and they're on to the 12th toy. Because it's hard for us adults, and it's hard for us to teach our kids that we don't need that bright, new, shiny thing to make us happy in that moment. And I think that, believe it or not, kids will get that message faster than a lot of adults get that message, because if we've lived that way for a long time, we're subconsciously going to teach it to our kids. And that's what I love about your book. You're really not just talking to the kids. You're talking to the grandparents and the parents out there. How is it in a book about helping kids sort of not want a lot of stuff, not buy a lot of stuff, discover that deeper joy in life? And what is the central theme in your book that transcends that fleeting nature of buying the new thing?
Yes, I think it's ultimately, I think there's a level of that spirituality, a part of who we are in our soul, that is craving something. And for me, as someone that does believe in God and believes that there is something deeper in us, and when we look to something greater than ourselves, there is a perspective change that I think is really healthy. And so for my kids to be modeled, hey, there is something so much greater that loves you, loves who you are, created you specifically exactly how you are. And that Father's love is something that you can rest in. And that time and time again, when your stuff fails you, when that joy that is fleeting, that happiness is fleeting, when you buy that toy, there is something that is sustainable and something that you can always go back to. And he's always there. And he's always there. And so, and there's something beautiful too about experiencing it too, Meg. I think that there's, even in nature, like we have a little hiking trail behind our house, and it's like my kid's favorite thing. And I'm like, obviously it's because we're as a family and there's no technology and we're just walking through the woods, but there's something beautiful to be reconnected there, right? I think there's elements of life that you can actually experience. And I want my kids to experience it, to have those feelings, because that is so much more lasting than the toy, right? I mean, it's even the free toy from the dentist when you walk out and they give you a little goodie bag. I mean, it's all of it. It's the scale of all of it. So there's something there that I want my kids to actually experience and feel. And I think I think it's a big part of it, because it's the thing that will sustain, and it's the thing that it is always there. It's always there.
I love it. And a lot of parents, I think, feel intimidated teaching their kids about God and faith and seeing and feeling the unknown. But my experience is that they absorb it a lot faster than we do. You were describing your family trips to Mexico. I can guarantee you, as one who just knows kids, that when your kids look back on the experiences, they're not going to remember what kind of hotel you were in, or how big the pool was, or the nice dinners, or even think about money or how much it costs. They're going to remember times with your mom and dad when they said something, a hug, how they helped them swim. They're going to remember the good stuff. And that's the beauty of kids. You're there worrying about, am I spoiling my kids? Are we spending too much money? Kids aren't even thinking about that.
They don't even know.
They're looking at you and their grandparents and going, wow, they're all here.
Yes. And Meg, isn't that wild? That's the one thing about parenting. It's my stuff.
That's is your stuff, Rachel. I was trying to say that in a nice way.
No, you can tell me, Meg. I know.
Yeah.
I know, where I'm like, oh my gosh. And that's so much of parenting, not even that situation, but other things. And I'm like, so much of parenting, it's my stuff. My kids don't care. One of mine was sitting alone at a birthday party doing like a little craft. And I literally walked over. I was like, I'll scoot your chair over to be with the group. She's like, I'm fine, Mom. But I wouldn't, it's my stuff. I'm like, I wouldn't be fine. So I'm projecting that you're not fine, but you're fine. I mean, it's all of it, Meg. There's so much. So it is so true. I'm glad you even said it, because it is. It's so true. The things.
Well, I know you're a worrier.
My fear.
I know you're a worrier, and a fabulous mom, but you've got a little perfectionism in you. And, for those moms who want to do everything just right, it's great. But remember, sometimes your struggles are not your kids' struggles. So stand back and try to think, what are they experiencing here? What are they experiencing? Because I'm experiencing something different. So you could have called me at the pool and I would have given you what for, Rachel, and said, stop it. They're just having a great time with you. And so my encouragement with parents is to say, your kids want these lessons. Your kids want to know where your priorities are. Your kids want to know that you want to be with them more than you want to buy them stuff. So don't worry about that. Your kids aren't thinking about how much money you're making or what kind of car you're driving. So don't sweat that stuff. Focus on relationships. I have to take a quick break, but before I go, I want to invite you to visit drmegmeeker.com, where you can find a plethora of resources for your parenting journey. Explore our courses, join our free coaching webinar, and take our parent personality quiz. We'll be right back.
Some days, parenting feels like chasing moments that never quite land. You ask a question, they shrug. You try again, they look at their screen. And you wonder, why is this so hard? That's why I love FamGabs. It's a 70-card deck created by a child therapist who spent 16 years working directly with families, helping parents and kids break through the awkward one-word answers and really connect. The questions are open-ended, thoughtfully chosen, and designed to get your child talking and keep the conversation going. There are even bonus cards just for parents to help you build your confidence in your connection toolbox. If you've ever wished for a better way to understand your child or just to have more meaningful conversations as a family, FamGabs is such a gift. Search FamGabs on Amazon and use promo code DrMegPod during checkout to get 10% off your order. That's FamGabs on Amazon. Use promo code DrMegPod and get 10% off your order. You know that moment when your child lights up because something finally clicks? That's what every parent wants, to see their child thrive. But when school just isn't the right fit, that joy can fade. That's why I want to tell you about K-12 powered schools. These are tuition-free, accredited online public schools for kindergarten through 12th grade. They're designed to meet your child where they are, so they can learn at their own pace, in their own space, and a curriculum that fits their unique learning style. And here's what sets it apart. This isn't homeschooling. You're not the teacher. K-12's state-certified online educators are trained to make lessons interactive and engaging using innovative technology. And your child still gets social experiences, clubs, extracurriculars, even in-person events. K-12 has helped over 3 million families give their kids the tools to thrive, and they've been doing it for more than 25 years. It could be exactly what your child needs. Visit k12.com/Dr. Meg to find a tuition-free K-12 powered school near you and enroll today. That's k12./DRMEG, all caps.
Let's just go back to real practical stuff here. You're a financial expert and an author. And give us top 3 tips for kids, for parents to teach kids financial wellness.
I would say number 1, I think it's an important foundational point to learn where money comes from. And so I think a level of work is really healthy. I think there's some stuff they'll do around the house because they're part of the family. But I do think that there can be, a couple of things that they do that you pay them on. And they can start to experience money comes from work. And then when they earn their own money, we always talk about the envelope system at Ramsey, but you can do it with your kids. Get 3 envelopes and it's give, save, and spend. And in that order of importance, really teaching them that generosity piece. Let them practice giving their own money. And they're going to feel that so differently than if you just handed them money. And then have them save. I think delayed gratification, we kind of touched on that earlier, but I think that's such an important principle to be walked through on a consistent basis for ourselves as adults, but also for kids, and to say, hey, there's something out there. We can't get it today, but we're going to work towards it and we're going to save for that. And then that last bucket is just to enjoy, right? There are going to be things that they enjoy. And this is where too, Meg, I think a lot of mistakes can happen in a good way. Let them spend it on something that is probably not great. Maybe have a conversation about it, but that was me as a kid. I mean, I bought so many stupid stuff. And mom was always like, are you sure you want another Slinky? It's going to get all twisted up before we get home. And I'm like, no, I want it. And I have to learn that, right? And there's something about making those small mistakes under your roof, that you're there as kind of that pad between life and them, for them to start to experience some of those emotions around money. And I think that's really important. And so, those are just some tactical things to do. And, and I say all of this. And what's funny is Dad and I wrote a book called Smart Money, Smart Kids 12 years ago before I had kids. And I was kind of the kid in the book, the perspective of what I learned. So it is funny now having kids of age that can do all of this. And as much as I've talked about it over a decade, it's exhausting to implement. So all you parents out there, it's okay. Like if you're not overly consistent, they're going to be okay. But I think it's that intentionality, keep it on the forefront, and be able to have those conversations and those experiences, but not to add something else to the plate. I do feel like parents, it's like, we got to eat right. We got to teach them this. All these like buckets that can be so overwhelming. So give yourself grace, but also, know that this is a part of life that you want to be the teacher in. You don't want
other people to. And, and I think that's
Yes.
right. I think that if money has the proper place in your heart, it'll have the proper place in your kid's heart. I know that, your dad and you teach a lot about service and giving. How do you tell your kids how to give their money or what kind of service they can do? Do you have that conversation with them, or do you just sort of say, who do you want to give your money to? How do you teach your kids that?
Yeah, right now it's more just church. We're kind of just in that rhythm. But as they get older, our youngest is 4. And so I can see, there's certain places that we've looked into to go and like volunteer and all this different stuff. And there's like age limits and all of it. So I think, there's a prime age that once they get to that position where they're able to actually go out and serve and actually start having the conversations of like, what are the things in life that you see that are really sad to you? Is it seeing the homelessness? Does that make you really sad? Is it the thought that some kids don't have Christmas gifts, that they don't get Christmas gifts. And, that makes you like, what are the things in your heart that you find, oh my gosh, because that's going to be an indicator of what you find. And same with adults, right? I'm like, find the thing that breaks your heart. And you're like, oh my gosh, because when you give to something that you care about and you believe in, and finding the right organization, all of that, right, is very important. But even just knowing kind of a direction on which to give, that's where joy is. And that's what's fun. And something we've done within the Ramsey Family Foundation just the last 2 years, Meg, his mom and dad formalized all their giving, is we used to just, and my sister kind of heads all of it up, but we used to just like give amounts of money to these organizations. And then we changed it a little bit to give actual items, if that makes sense. So like there was a mobile dentist, and to be able to buy the van and say, hey, we're not going to just give money, but like, let's actually purchase a thing to help with the ministry. And then you're like, oh my gosh, it connects you more,
You're
right?
more
So like even
yes.
changes in that. Yeah, even changes in that you can look at and be creative, I think is great. But I think for little ones, and I really want to do it more with our family, is that service. I'm like, I want to go out and actually do the thing, not just give the money, but let's go and participate and help. But that part I think is huge, and getting them, obviously out of the bubble of their normalcy and their life, and all of that's very important. But letting that be a rhythm, I think, is really key.
I mean, that's what I love about your whole work. I mean, the whole, Ramsey solution, the whole vibe there is so wonderful, because everybody's sort of taught to give and to serve, that the work is important, that the work isn't just work. You're given work to be able to bless other people. My husband, Walt, was really good about that, with raising our kids. And one of the things that he implemented in our home, and I'm very glad he did, one Sunday a month from the time the kids were little, we served at the soup kitchen, and we still do. And our kids are grown, and our oldest is 40. But I remember our oldest daughter came to care so much about certain people that came. And one year, she was probably 15 or 16, one of the gentlemen who came froze to death. And it took her a long time to get over. And I think that the idea that you are right next to somebody, not feeling sorry for them, but trying to help them live well, it changes your heart. And I love that you say, find what breaks your heart and help your kids serve there, because that will develop a whole new dimension in them. That will develop a new understanding of who God is and who Christ is, who gave the ultimate sacrifice. And so that brings them in on a much deeper level. And that's how I love that you weave the gospel through the books everywhere. We don't have much time, but I do want to touch down on my next favorite book. I don't know, maybe this is my first favorite book that you wrote. I'm glad for where I am. And boy, isn't that a struggle for every adult? If only we lived there, if only we had a different house, then I would be really happy. And your message in this, I'm glad for where I am, to kids and their parents, is enjoy where you are and appreciate where you are. So what was the whole lesson that you wanted to teach kids, and what motivated you to write, I'm glad for where I am?
So the subject of gratitude, I was like, okay, I could go like the manners route and say thank you, like that you can go that route. But I was like, but I wanted something deeper, and kind of back to what I said earlier. There's something about finding like deep gratitude for the things that money can't buy. And your family, the home environment that's created, there's something just so beautiful there that I think is really important for kids to like, that's where they start this journey, and that being that foundational point. And the grass is always greener, right? On the other side is what we all feel, like you said, no matter your age. And to show them like, oh my gosh, I thought, if I was there or experiencing that over there, I would be happier. But it's going back to this point of I was created and made for exactly where I'm supposed to be. And there's a beauty in that. And for these little ones, just to be reminded over and over that our life, our family is such a gift. It is such a gift. And let's be great. Let's start there. Let's let that be the starting point of our gratitude.
I love it. And I think that I'm going to say this because I can, because I know you and I know your dad really well. And a lot of people may say, oh yeah, well, that's easy for you to say because you've never struggled financially. Well, yes, you have. But I will say you and your dad are the real deal. You're not just saying this because it's easy to say because life is cushy for you. You believe this, you breathe it, you live it. I've watched it. And so there's such an authenticity, Rachel, in what you do. And I think that really comes out in your books, because if you didn't believe this and live it, you couldn't write a book on it. And I think that comes through beautifully. So I'm anxious for your next book, because I'll tell you the truth. I love to read. I read everything I can find, whether it's good or whether it's bad. But again, I love children's books that teach me a lesson. And that's exactly what your two books. I'm glad for where I am, and I'm glad for what I have, should be books that every parent reads 2 or 3 times a week just for themselves, because they're beautiful reminders that the joy in life is very simple, and we try to make it so complicated. And it begins with God and it ends with God. And along the way, it involves some wonderful, wonderful, precious loved ones and some people and some friends and a handful of people that you can serve. And that's where the real joy is. And I think that you really drive that point home in your book. So I am so grateful that you wrote them. Thank you so much from me to you.
Oh, thank you, Meg.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I'm so glad you pointed that out, because that was part of my motivation as I was writing them. I was like, as a parent, I sit in that chair and read to my kids. And it's exactly what you said, but I'll echo it because I feel the same way. When there is something, a lesson there, Max Lucado has a beautiful kids book. It's called You Are Special. And it literally, I get tears in my eyes because it speaks to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so good. And I'm like, I want to convey that same emotion to the parents that's reading it as well, because these are important messages. And sometimes it's the simplicity of just some rhymes that you're just like, I needed that. I needed that today. So I'm glad you pointed that out, because that was part of my thought process as I was writing them. So thank you, Meg. And thanks for being such a encourager. I so appreciate it.
The deepest truths and the greatest joys in life are profoundly simple. But they're hard to teach. It's like, the 2 biggest commandments: love the Lord your God with all your heart. Okay, got that one. Really? It's a sentence, but it takes a lifetime to do. And it's the simple loving, but that involves money too, because the way we love God well is to help his people. And we don't always choose who those people are going to be. And sometimes it's helping them through talk, and sometimes it's through a van, and sometimes it's through money or a phone conversation. But, that is really the heart of life. And that's what your company stands for. That's what you stand for. And that's what you're really showing in these books. So I opened, our show with, why in the world did you write these books? I know why you wrote the books, because this is you. This is you in the books, talking to kids. And so that's what I love about it, Rachel. Thanks so much for joining me. My guest today has been Rachel Cruz. She is a New York Times bestselling author. She is host of The Rachel Cruz Show. She's a mom. She's a financial expert, and her books, which are going to be part of a series. The first book is I'm Glad for What I Have. Second book getting ready to come out is I'm Glad for Where I Am. And Rachel, you better call me when the third book comes out, or I won't be your friend anymore.
Yes. Thank you, Meg. I will. I so appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
As we wrap up today's episode, remember that you can stay connected with us by visiting us at meekerparenting.com. And for all of you parents, I want you to know I'm so excited about a brand new program that I started on coaching dads. So if you're a dad who needs a coach, or you're a mother who wants your husband to be coached, check it out, meekerparenting.com. And always remember that great kids are raised, not born.